Hi guys, in this video we're looking at a mock test from Warwick Driving Test Centre. Now we're starting in the car park just outside the gates. The green gates on the right there are the way in and out of the test centre itself. Keeping in mind that you shouldn't go in and out of the test centre unless you're actually attending a driving test. Coming out onto Wedge Knock Lane, we are turning right. Just remember to check for traffic both directions, and don't forget that as you join this road it is a 40-mile-an-hour zone. So the examiners will expect you to make progress up to that 40 mile an hour if it's safe to do so. Just a little ahead you will see a drop to 30 mile an hour. Make sure that you are down to 30 mile an hour as you're passing that sign. You don't want to be reaching the sign and then slowing down. The speed limit applies at the sign, so when it's entering a lower speed limit, bring your speed down before you reach the sign. Taking a right turn here into Deansway. Just be mindful there's always parked cars here, so you want to be looking up for oncoming traffic like this Nissan, and always make sure you're ready to hold back just like this pupil has here. Once you feel there's a safe gap to make your way through, don't forget to check your mirrors for what's following you, and then make your way through nice and smoothly. Remember, you're going downhill, so the car's going to pick up its speed more quickly. You don't want it to run away from you too quickly. You want to keep in control of that. Up ahead, we're coming to a bend. Just be mindful on this bend, there's nearly always parked cars on the right hand side, and this means oncoming traffic will be on your side of the road. So you want to reduce your speed. Notice how we've dropped to 18 mile an hour now, just to make sure you can see it's safe before you pick that speed up again. And again, don't forget to check those mirrors before you slow down and before you speed up. Now this is not only going to show the examiner a good level of awareness of how your behaviour is going to affect other traffic and the risks such as bikes coming around you, it's also going to keep you safe in the long run, because if you're in the habit of checking those mirrors frequently, you're not going to miss a thing when you're out there. Just after we pass the crossing here, there's a car park on the right hand side, and I'm going to get this pupil to pull into the car park to do their manoeuvre. Now whenever you're going into a car park, you want to be looking around into the car park, looking for pedestrians, looking for moving vehicles before you actually turn in. Also be mindful of people walking between cars if there's loads of them around, and keeping your speed nice and slow as you're going through the car park too. Now on this occasion I've asked the pupil to do a forward bay park. When you bring the car in like this, you want to make sure all four wheels are inside the line, keeping the car as straight as you can as you finish the manoeuvre, and then of course secure the car, and the examiner will ask you to reverse back out again. When you're doing your reversing, take your time, make sure you're looking over your shoulders frequently, both the left side and the right. Don't just focus on one side of the car, because then you're going to get faulted for not making effective observations. Remember, pedestrians and cars can come from both sides of you when you're reversing out like that. Coming back out onto the road, just got to be mindful of parked cars like this, so really important to look both ways before you pull out. And then as we reach the end of the road, I'm going to be taking a left turn. As always, make sure you're slowing down and you're ready to stop and let other traffic pass, because that's the whole point of a giveaway line, is that you let other vehicles have priority over you before you join that new road. Up ahead, I'm going to get the pupil to pull up on the left hand side. Now you'll be asked to do this several times during your driving test. Sometimes it will be just a clear roadside like this in a housing estate. Just make sure you pick where you want to pull over, check your mirrors, signal, and bring the car in nice and gently, keeping close to the curb. When you move on again, remember to check over that right shoulder just before you're pulling away. Now if ever you're not sure, if there's something approaching and you're not sure you can get out in front of it safely, just let it pass first, and always look ahead of you too. As you can see, there's a number of parked cars here, so our path brings us onto the wrong side of the road, and of course we'll have to account for any oncoming vehicles when we do that. Now that's especially true when you're doing an angle start like this, where the examiner will ask you to pull up in front of or behind a parked car. Notice the oncoming vehicle. We don't want to be moving out around this parked car as that approaches, because you're just going to get yourself into a conflict very, very quickly. So just wait your time, let those vehicles pass, then check over your shoulder, and away you go if it's safe, not forgetting your signals, of course, to let anyone know that you're pulling out. Now what I tend to tell my pupils is to double check that blind spot just as they start steering out as well. And that's just to double check that as they swing out, they haven't missed anything. It's going to change the angle that they can see and give them a little more cover from anything coming up behind. And of course, one of the main things that the examiners are after on the driving test is that you are safe and aware. So just show them that you're aware of what's going on, you know where the risks are by keeping your head moving, checking the mirrors, checking the blind spots when it's appropriate, and just showing the examiner that you're responding to what you see as well. Just as we come around this bend, we've got a slow marking telling us that there's something going on. We've got a roundabout. Now this roundabout has caught a few of my pupils out in the past. It is a 2-lane roundabout and we're going to be going straight ahead. So the natural position is the left-hand lane. Ignore the arrow with the bike next to it. That's telling cyclists to go on the footpath. Make sure you stay nice and wide on the roundabout. Notice how this pupil cut in a little bit towards the second half of the turn. Now, of course, that's going to be recorded as a driver fault. However, if the movement was more significant or it did affect anyone nearby, then it could escalate very quickly to a serious or dangerous fault. So you want to be very, very careful about your lane discipline when coming across roundabouts like this, particularly because there's no markings to show you those lanes as you go around. As always, good mirror use is going to be helpful as you go around these roundabouts as well, because if you've got someone coming alongside you, you want to know that they are there. With the road ahead, you can see that the pupil here is travelling at just over 20 miles an hour. We've got speed ramps regularly along this road. We've got a bend coming up, and it is a little bit narrow at points as well. So it's perfectly reasonable to travel at that reduced speed. Taking this next road on the right, any junctions like this, remember to look up into that road for speed signs, for parked cars, for oncoming vehicles, pedestrians, before you make that turn. And of course, if there's oncoming vehicles, they have priority. Let them pass before you make the turn. When you're passing parked vehicles like this, you can see the pupils doing a really nice job of keeping the speed low. What we can't see, of course, is the mirror use. There should be regular checks on either side. Now, I've asked the pupil to pull over on the left at a safe place, and they have pulled up next to a driveway. Unless the examiner specifically says don't worry about the driveways, then make sure you keep them clear. Now, on top of that, like I said the last time, you've got to make sure you cover those blind spots. Even though it was quiet on this occasion and it didn't cause any problems, the pupil forgot to check that blind spot. It's going to go down as a driver fault. And if it keeps happening, those driver faults are going to rack up and it will quickly become a serious one. So if you're keeping on top of the little things like checking your blind spots, checking your mirrors, making sure your signals are timed well, then you're going to reduce the chance of getting any serious or dangerous faults. With narrow streets like this, always look ahead for oncoming vehicles and look for gaps that you or they could use to pass each other, because we're going on the wrong side of the road. Of course, we're the ones who should be making sure it's safe before moving out around those parked cars. If you're already passing those parked cars and something appears, keep yourself moving to the next safe space where you can pull in and let them pass. And don't forget, keep on those mirrors frequently, particularly the left side as you're passing those parked cars and planning to move back in. Just up ahead, we've got a very narrow bridge, and you'll see that we don't have priority here. There's a give way marking, and we've got the circular sign there with the red arrow in our direction. It's very difficult to see. It's just like this pupil has, slowing right down to make sure you can see nothing's coming before you cross that bridge, before you commit to it, is exactly what you want to be doing. And not forgetting, again, mirror use so you know what's behind you when you're approaching. End of the road, we're turning left, and you can see this is quite a closed junction. It's very difficult to see. Now, with those buildings blocking your view, you not only want to be careful of vehicles crossing at the end of the road, but also pedestrians who might be approaching the corner to cross in front of you. If you can, you should try to let them cross. And this is something the examiners will be looking for since it was added into the highway code a few years ago. Remember that hierarchy of road users. In simple terms, whenever you're approaching the end of a road, whether you're coming out or into that side road, the examiners will expect you to be prepared to give way to pedestrians and cyclists crossing at the end of that road. That, of course, applies after you've passed your test as well. As we're queuing at the traffic lights here, you'll see we're leaving a nice gap between us and the car in front. This is really good to see, and especially on a hill like this, because there's always the potential of that vehicle rolling backwards. Now, in terms of rolling backwards, you are allowed to use the handbrake to help you get away from hill starts like this. There's no issue doing that as long as you keep good control over the car. Now, if you don't use the handbrake and you're happy pulling away with the clutch and gas from the foot brake, then that's absolutely fine as well, as long as you show good control over this. Now, one of the things I found most helpful for my pupils when we were practicing hill starts was getting them to focus on moving the car forward rather than worrying about rolling backwards or panicking if the car did move backwards at all. If you don't feel entirely confident with hill starts, just like any other skill that you'll need when you're driving, put your time and effort into improving those skills before you go to your test. Make sure you feel confident with those skills so they're less likely to get on top of you when you're under the pressure of doing a test. Bearing left onto Rugby Road here, my advice for that one would be to use your mirrors and signal and treat it like a left turn. That will give other drivers clarity as to where you're going, and of course, because it's quite a shallow turn, you'll need to cancel the signal manually afterwards. It's not going to go off on its own. We're going to be taking the next left where the Vauxhall dealer is, and this is going to lead us up through Old Milverton. This is quite a narrow country lane with high speed limits and part of it, so you want to be quite confident with those roads as well, making sure you're comfortable with your clearance, your positioning, and of course balancing your speed when you're going through these roads. Now, this pupil did make a couple of mistakes on this section of road. Just here, we're a little bit close to that hedge. Now, after speaking to the pupil afterwards, this was caused by them focusing on the right-hand side of the vehicle instead of the left-hand side of the vehicle. They were looking for the white lines to help them keep in position, and as a result, they've ended up too close to the left-hand side. So what we should be doing on narrow stretches of road in particular is watching that left-hand side more so. Now, this is particularly true at higher speeds. Up ahead, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, but for the moment, as you can see, we're coming through a 30-mile-an-hour zone. There's speed ramps, and the pupil is keeping the speed quite low. The positioning is looking pretty good for the most part. They're not getting close to that left side anymore. And of course, they're using the mirrors frequently as they do this. And that's what we want to see. Lots and lots and lots of mirror use. And that applies even if the road is quiet like this. I mean, we've hardly seen any oncoming cars down here. And there's nothing following us at this point as well. But even so, we want to keep on those mirrors, keep up to date, and keep aware of how much clearance we've got on either side. As you can see up ahead, the road narrows pretty quickly as we hit this last speed ramp. And just a little further ahead, the road's not really going to get any wider, but it's going to get a bit faster. So we're dealing with just as little space, but with a higher speed limit. Now, this is where it's really important to note that a speed limit is not a target. You don't have to get up to 40 mile an hour in a 40 zone as long as your speed matches the environment. So up ahead, you'll see that speed change. We're going up to 40 mile an hour. You can see the road is just as narrow as we go ahead. So it becomes really important to keep the speed manageable as we make progress along here. Now, remember I mentioned earlier about watching the left mirror instead of the right mirror when you're trying to gauge your positioning. You see those verges on the left-hand side. If your tyres slip off the tarmac into that grass verge, the potential is you're going to get pulled off into the hedge. So the examiners will be really mindful of that left-hand side, and so should you when you're coming down this road as well. Now, I'm going to record a serious fault because this pupil does sit right on the edge of that grass verge for a good distance, a good 20 meters or so. And this is where I've commented to them saying, you are too close on the left-hand side. That would be recorded as a serious fault with verbal intervention from the examiner. When you get a serious fault, it is going to be a fail on your driving test, but don't let that be the end of your test. Don't let yourself switch off. Make sure you do the best for the rest of the drive because it's going to give you the experience and preparation for the next attempt that you take. Coming around the bend, you can see we've got the brow of the bridge there, makes it very difficult to see what's coming the other way. So again, a nice reduced speed. See the pupil was sitting about 20 mile an hour there. And then as we enter the 50 mile an hour section, again, you want to be very mindful of your left side because there's no curbs, there's just grass verges. You don't want to be touching them at these speeds. But equally with the bends, the narrow road, do you really want to be doing 50 mile an hour down here? So I'm not going to record a fault for the speed this pupil's doing because we're just hitting 40 mile an hour now. And I think that's perfectly reasonable down here, because if something comes the other way, you need to have time to react, to slow down, to check your mirrors, and to get yourself over enough to let them pass, but not so far that you end up off the road. Now that's a lot to think about, and if you're traveling 10 mile an hour quicker, you've got a lot less time to think about it. So make sure your speed matches the environment. This is a really good demonstration of how to do that, keeping it at 40 rather than 50 to match the lack of space and the lack of visibility we've got. Notice the reduction in speed as we're passing the cyclist, and that slight dip to the left. That's a really good example of giving the cyclist lots of consideration and plenty of room to pass by. Up ahead, we've got a roundabout. We're going to be taking a left turn. There is a driveway between the sign and the roundabout, however. The pupil has put the signal on and then realised this isn't the roundabout and cancelled it, but I'm still going to record that as a driver fault. Coming up to the roundabout, there is a little bit of a kink in the steering. As we're leaning into the left, she kinks the wheel to the right slightly just to correct the positioning, getting a bit close to that curb there. Now it is quite difficult to see that on the camera, but being sat next to this pupil, it was very clear what they did. There was a little jerk of the steering wheel. The examiners will pick up on things like that. Now all it showed to me there was the pupil was spending a bit too much time looking to the right hand side rather than looking up into the new road. What I always teach my pupils is keep your mind focused on where you're going and then glance around for the gaps. But what people tend to do is the opposite. They'll focus on the traffic looking for the gaps and then glance up at the last minute into the road they're going into. Now that can cause a whole host of issues. One of them is positioning and steering issues. Another, of course, is if there's a queue in that road or there's something going on, you're not going to see it until you're already accelerating into it. And that, of course, is going to cause you a lot of problems. Up ahead, you might be able to see the large green sign. That's telling us there's a roundabout coming up. We'll be going straight ahead, second exit. Now, earlier on, this caused a minor issue for the pupil as she leant into the other lane slightly halfway across the roundabout. So this is something to be really mindful of on these style of roundabouts where you've got two lanes on the way in, but no markings on the actual roundabout. See how she's kept all the way to the left-hand edge throughout the roundabout? The arrow on the right tells us there is two lanes as we leave the roundabout, but that they merge very quickly. So mirror use again is really important there to see if anyone is coming off in that other lane, potentially trying to get round you at the last minute as those lanes merge. And if you're wearing L plates, you can be particularly vulnerable to drivers trying to do that. So that mirror use, I can't stress the importance of it enough. You've got to keep on those mirrors. You've got to look out for these vulnerable spots where people may try to get round you, and you knowing that they're going to do that can help you prevent an issue. Up ahead, we've got another roundabout. We're going to be taking a left turn towards Warwick, first exit. It's got two lanes on the way in, so naturally that left-hand lane makes sense, not forgetting the mirrors and signals as we approach. Don't forget to check for cars from the right, particularly those close to the island who are more likely to come round to you. The ones further away in the outer lane are less likely, but just be mindful of people changing direction at the last minute. As we're coming down here, we're joining onto the A46. You can see the slip road. Now this is the closest you'll get to a motorway on your driving test because you're not actually allowed on the motorway with the examiner. As you're coming down the slip road, remember to get your right signal on, keep your right mirror covered, and check that blind spot before you enter the new road. Once you're in lane 1, cancel your signal, cover your mirrors again, and continue building your speed up to the limit if it's safe to do so, of course. As we've come onto the A46, just like this pupil has, I hope you've spotted those yellow signs giving us the heads up that there is a lane closure up ahead. You can see the cones and the direction arrows here telling you to move over. If you do see these, make sure you're moving over in good time and safely, not forgetting to check that blind spot before you move and cancelling the signal once you've got into that middle lane. Now, if you notice the signs above the dual carriageway here, you'll see that the left lane goes to Warwick and then the other two lanes will take you to Stratford. Now, you notice the markings are different as well, and this is to signify that that left lane is going to separate off up ahead. So if you're going towards Warwick, you'll want to check your mirror's signal, don't forget the blind spot, and then come back into that left lane. If not, stay in the middle lane at this point and keep going along the dual carriageway. As you approach exits like this, it's really important to keep on your mirrors because you will get people changing lane at the last minute. So you want to make sure you're not alongside vehicles and that you're watching for vehicles coming up quickly behind who might try to get past you before they change position too. And that's particularly true when you're in the exit lane. You'll occasionally get people who will come up the middle lane and then try and get in front of you just before the exit. So really good mirror use to spot those people coming up behind you and just be prepared for them by adapting your speed. Showing that awareness to the examiner, it's really going to help you on your driving test. But also that awareness is going to help you afterwards. Coming up to entry roads like this, whilst you're keeping that left lane, keep an eye on that left mirror. Don't forget to look over your shoulder if you can as well. Look out for vehicles coming up that slip road. Again, you will get the odd person who will try and put their foot down and get ahead of you. And of course, spotting them nice and early is going to help you keep safe, not just for your driving test, but after you've passed and when you're driving on your own as well. Now, something I mentioned in one of my recent videos is the speed limit on this road. You'll notice during the roadworks there was a section of 60 miles an hour. But for the rest of the road, it's national speed limit where you see the white sign with the black diagonal stripe coming through. Now, for a car, that speed limit is 70 miles an hour, but you'll notice that my pupil is sitting at 60 for the national speed limit sections as well, just like now. Now, the reason for that is that my vehicle is not a car, it is a van-derived car, which means that originally it was built as a van, so the rules of the van apply to it, and on a national speed limit dual carriageway like this, the speed limit for a van is 60 miles an hour, not 70. Notice the sign on the left there. We've got an exit coming up in half a mile towards Warwick, and we will be taking that exit. What we'll be looking for is to move into the left lane if we're not already there, and then be ready for those countdown markers, the 3, 2, 1 signs that you'll see coming up just up ahead. Once you get to those countdown markers, get on those mirrors, put that left signal on, but try to keep your speed up if it's safe to do so, of course, because you don't want to be slowing down and disrupting the traffic on the main road. You want to come off the main road onto the slip road and then start reducing your speed. You should also cancel the signal once you've exited and then reapply the signal if you're turning left at the roundabout. Now, this pupil left the signal on for the duration of the slip road, and that could be seen as being left on as a mistake. So separating those signals into exiting and then turning left at the roundabout, it just gives more clarity for other drivers. And that might seem a little bit nitpicky, but an examiner may record that on the driving test, and that's why I've recorded it as a driver fault. As we come off the roundabout, we've entered into a 30 mile an hour zone. Notice the arrows telling the right hand lane to merge in. Again, getting on those mirrors, just looking out for anyone who may try to make the last minute pass. If there is anyone trying to pass you at the last point here where the lanes are merging, just ease off and let them be. That will give them more space as they pass you, and it reduces the chance of you having to react sharply if they come in too close to the front of you or have to slow down shortly after. These traffic lights, notice the markings. We've got to move into that right hand lane to continue straight, and this is where the pupil's going to make a serious fault on the lights. Now, when you're approaching traffic lights, what I always try and teach my pupils is to cover the brake for a few seconds, and that way you're prepared for the lights to change and you can stop smoothly. What this pupil did was kept on the accelerator, and when the lights changed, they're at that awkward point where they could stop if they already had their foot on the brake, but because the foot's already on the accelerator, they decided to accelerate and go through the lights as they were changing. Now, an examiner will record that as a serious fault because you're accelerating to get through the lights, when of course the ideal is to slow down and stop from that distance. Coming into St Michael's Road, you'll see we're coming around at a very nice pace around these bends, giving plenty of time to see what's around the bend and between the parked cars. It is a bus route down here as well, so you can expect buses to come flying around that corner. So the positioning on that bend as well, keeping right over to the curb. Really, really nice example of how to deal with this road by this pupil. Now, another reminder here, when you're going between parked cars like this, don't forget to check your mirrors frequently. Your right mirror before you move out around something, and your left mirror before you move back in. Now, this point is especially tricky because you've got to come out to the wrong side and you've got the bend, and you don't know what's coming around that bend. So the pace there being below 20 miles an hour is a really good example of how to handle situations like that. And that's what we should be looking for. We don't want to come around those bends fast, because if someone's doing the same from the other side, we would both have to react quite sharply, and that of course is really uncomfortable for the examiner if you're on your test. They aren't going to be happy about it, and they're potentially going to record a serious fault because you could have prevented that problem by simply going into the bend a little slower. At the end of St Michael's left and then right into St Miller's. Whenever you're turning right here, just make sure you're looking out for oncoming vehicles, even ones that are turning like this Rover. Just make sure you give them plenty of time, and when you're turning in, look up before you commit to the turn so you know what you're going into. If you go rushing in without looking up first, you're going to end up giving yourself problems. You might come into the speed ramps too quickly. There might even be a queue there or someone trying to cross the road. So always look into the turn before you make the turn. As we're coming down the hill here and around the bend, it does get a little bit narrow with these parked cars, and that's particularly true if you get a large vehicle coming the other way. And with it being an industrial estate, you will get lorries up and down here through the day. You'll also get buses up here because it's a bus route. You can see the bus stop up ahead as we come up to the zebra crossing. So be very mindful if there's large vehicles. You'll want to keep right into that curb if you're coming through together, or even better, just hold back opposite a gap, like the gap on the right here, where that vehicle can dip into the gap to get past you more safely. Zebra crossings, of course, check for people approaching the crossing and make sure you can cross it safely, and just cover your brakes until you're sure it's clear. Just up ahead, we've got a few tight bends. Again, if you encounter a large vehicle on these bends, it is very, very cozy, so you want to come through at a nice, steady pace. And you can see this pupil sitting around 20 miles an hour, which feels quite comfortable, to be fair. And you can also see if there's large vehicles coming over the hedges as you come around the bend. Up ahead, we've got quite an unusual junction at the end of the road, and this has caught people out in the past. Notice the slow marking there. Even though it's faded, that is a clue to you that something's going on. You want to be reducing your speed. Now you can see the markings guiding us around to the left-hand side as the road separates into two one-way sections. We've got a zebra crossing here near the end, and we've got give way signs and no right turns as well. If you're coming up to the end of a road with no right turn at the end, odds are the examiner is not going to tell you which direction to turn because the signs already tell you. During the briefing at the start of your driving test, the examiner will clearly say, follow the road ahead unless signs or markings direct you otherwise. So of course, coming up to the end of that road, you can't turn right. The only other option is left. The examiner would expect you to make that deduction on your own. They don't expect to have to tell you which way to go because you're on your driving test ready to be out there on your own. If you're out there on your own, you've got to look for those signs to tell you what to do because nobody's going to be sat next to you telling you. At the roundabout, we're taking a left turn, keeping nice and close to the curb as we make that turn. So a really nice approach there by this pupil, and not forgetting to cancel the signal if it doesn't cancel itself after the turn. From here, we're just going to follow the road ahead back to the test centre. Now, the road does have quite a few bends and hills in it. There's crossings and there are junctions on either side. So your speed has to reflect the visibility and the busyness of that road. Even though the limit is 30, Just be mindful that sometimes it's a little bit safer to drop down to 25 or even 20, depending on what you can or can't see up ahead. So any side roads, any pedestrians nearby, parked cars, anything that could potentially cause you to have to slow down, just ease off the power, let the car slow naturally, and then pick it up again once you're clear. Not forgetting, keep on those mirrors as you're approaching that potential hazard and when you're passing it. Notice on the left here, we've got a warning about traffic lights. Now, warning signs like that are there to help you know what's coming up as a driver. So you can see the lights now. You should be checking for any pedestrians who might be looking to use the crossing, who may have pushed the button and walked away. And of course, easing off the accelerator just to give yourself more thinking time while you're looking around to ensure it's safe. Once you get to the point of no return, back on that accelerator and away you go if it's clear. As we come over this last hill, you'll see the 40-mile-an-hour sign at the bottom of the hill. Just be mindful that as you go downhill, the car is naturally going to try and pick up speed. So you want to be very mindful that you don't go over that 30-mile-an-hour mark until you pass that 40-mile-an-hour sign. Then, of course, you can pick up your speed if it's safe to do so. Now, this is going to bring us back into the test center on the left-hand side. So that brings this video to an end. And if you've been keeping count, you'll already know that we've got a total of 7 driver faults. But unfortunately, this pupil's also collected 2 serious faults. And of course, any serious faults mean that the test is not going to be a pass. As always, guys, thank you for watching the video. If you found it useful, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and I will try and keep this content coming. Thank you ever so much, and God bless you.